The observations cascading from Hawaii's Gemini Observatory north have shattered the comfortable narrative we've constructed around interstellar visitors. What emerged from the data isn't merely unusual, it's fundamentally transformative. Fresh analysis suggests that 3i Atlas isn't traveling through the cosmic void as a solitary wanderer. Multiple smaller objects accompany the primary body, each maintaining trajectories that defy natural explanation. These aren't optical artifacts or instrumental errors. We're examining discrete, confirmed points of light, moving in synchronized formation through the darkness between worlds. The precision of their movement suggests organization, purpose, intent. When scientists encounter the genuinely anomalous, we follow protocol. We exhaust every conventional explanation first. Could these companions be fragments? Debris scattered from the main nucleus as solar heating intensified during approach. Theoretically possible, but the data tells a different story. Natural fragmentation produces chaos. We observe debris trails expanding outward in random directions, irregular tumbling patterns, the signature disorder of catastrophic breakup. What we're witnessing instead defies this expectation entirely. The movement appears orchestrated, controlled, geometrically precise in ways that natural processes simply cannot produce. Amateur astronomers across the globe have independently corroborated these findings, lending unprecedented credibility to observations that institutional science has treated with suspicious silence. Stephen Burns released time-lapse sequences revealing multiple luminous objects maintaining perfect formation alongside 3i Atlas. A German observer known as Night Monkey identified distinct trajectories, each maintaining extraordinary precision relative to the primary mass. Alexander Flum captured something even more disturbing at the 30-second mark of his recording. A brilliant green flash, a diffused luminescence clearly separated from the main body, definitely not instrumental malfunction. That mysterious green coloration opens entirely new dimensions of inquiry. Standard comet theory explains green emission through dicarbon molecules, specifically C2, fluorescing under ultraviolet radiation from our sun. But here's where the narrative fractures. Spectroscopic analysis from Chile's Very Large Telescope reveals that 3i Atlas is severely depleted in these carbon chains. The object shouldn't produce green light at all, yet it does, repeatedly, consistently, unmistakably. Comets are fundamentally fragile structures. Dirty snowballs composed of frozen volatiles and loosely bound dust particles. They fracture under solar heating. They shatter under gravitational stress. They disintegrate under the relentless bombardment of the solar wind. A hollow comet, traveling at velocities exceeding 100,000 miles per hour, should have pulverized itself into cosmic dust centuries ago. Yet 3i Atlas remains completely intact. It survived a direct coronal mass ejection earlier this month. A catastrophic bombardment of charged solar plasma that should have obliterated any conventional comet structure. The object endured. It persisted. It continued its journey through our solar system as if protected by something we don't comprehend. Something that transcends conventional material science. This structural resilience points toward possibilities that challenge everything we've assumed about natural cosmic processes. What if that hollow interior isn't accidental? What if it represents deliberate engineering? Consider the logic. If an object were intentionally constructed rather than naturally formed, hollowing out the interior makes perfect engineering sense. It reduces overall mass while maintaining structural integrity. It protects sensitive internal components from radiation exposure and impact damage. It provides rotational stability that naturally tumbling objects never achieve. It creates internal spaces suitable for equipment, instrumentation, or systems we can only speculate about. And if the construction materials were exotic, perhaps elements or compounds beyond our periodic table, perhaps materials derived from physics we haven't yet discovered, that would elegantly explain why the gravitational signature registers so much weaker than expected. The mass-to-volume ratio simply doesn't align with conventional composition. To be absolutely transparent, this isn't definitive proof of artificial origin, but it represents something far more significant. It's a whisper from the cosmos itself, a suggestion that our rigid categorical distinctions between natural and artificial phenomena may require fundamental revision. NASA's Neil Gehrels Swift Observatory has contributed another profoundly puzzling element to this mystery. 3I Atlas is actively venting water vapor at a distance where conventional comets should remain completely dormant. We're measuring approximately 88 pounds of water per second at 3 astronomical units from the Sun. Most comets don't initiate outgassing until they venture substantially closer to solar heat. Why is this visitor releasing water so early? Why does that emission rate remain so unnervingly consistent? The answer suggests something extraordinary. Its internal structure, whether hollow or extensively porous throughout, appears to be channeling thermal energy in ways we've never observed before. Perhaps deliberately, perhaps through mechanisms we haven't yet developed the theoretical framework to understand. The Gemini images continue revealing multiple smaller companions traveling in synchronized formation. They move as if guided by some invisible organizing principle, some coordinating intelligence. If these represent naturally broken fragments, they demonstrate remarkable stability for debris. But if they're not fragments at all, if we're observing discrete entities traveling together with deliberate coordination, then we're witnessing behavior that transcends everything we understood about interstellar dynamics. And here we confront the truly uncomfortable question. If these accompanying bodies genuinely represent companions traveling alongside 3I Atlas, could they possibly be probes, reconnaissance vessels? Is it conceivable that what we're observing isn't simply one comet, but rather a convoy? A fleet moving in deliberate interstellar formation, crossing through our solar system for purposes we cannot yet comprehend. As a physicist, my natural instinct resists sensational conclusions, but I'm also a student of scientific history. Galileo was instructed to ignore Jupiter's moons because established wisdom declared they couldn't exist. Throughout human history, every encounter with the genuinely unknown has triggered the same response: denial, followed much later by wonder. We find ourselves suspended in that narrow, uncomfortable space between these two reactions. The conspicuous silence from official channels becomes increasingly difficult to ignore. NASA, the European Space Agency, China's Tianwen mission, all possess instruments perfectly positioned to gather high-resolution observational data during 3I Atlas's recent close approach to Mars. Yet the scientific results remain unpublished. The data exists. The telescopes functioned flawlessly, but the information pipeline has gone strangely, inexplicably quiet. This pattern carries historical weight. When Oumuamua entered our solar system in 2017, certain spectroscopic analyses and radar measurements were withheld from public release for months. When Borisov arrived in 2019, the identical delay occurred. And now, as 3I Atlas sweeps past Mars, history repeats itself with disturbing consistency. In our age of instantaneous global communication, silence becomes a signal, a message conveyed through conspicuous absence. Perhaps bureaucratic causes explain the delay. Government shutdowns, instrument calibration issues, cautious institutional vetting of extraordinary data. But the coincidence becomes increasingly difficult to rationalize. Each time an interstellar visitor challenges our fundamental expectations about how nature operates, the flow of information mysteriously tightens, like a valve being gradually closed. like a door being slowly shut. To me, as someone who has spent a lifetime in science, this doesn't represent conspiracy in the traditional sense. It represents something more human, more understandable. It's fear. Fear of public misunderstanding. Fear of premature speculation spiraling into chaos. Fear of confronting something genuinely extraordinary that doesn't fit comfortably within our existing frameworks. Fear of what it means if we're wrong about being alone. But science cannot progress if fear dictates the boundaries of our curiosity. If this object ultimately proves natural, we will learn profound lessons from studying it. But if it's not natural, if our observations are leading us towards something more significant, then we've stumbled upon a discovery that transcends astronomy itself. A discovery that touches the fundamental question of whether we're truly alone in this vast cosmic arena. Even statistically, the probabilities become absurd. There simply shouldn't be sufficient rocky material drifting through interstellar space to deliver objects of this magnitude to our solar system through random chance once every decade. The odds defy the inventory of known cosmic matter catalogued across our observable universe. The mathematics whispers that something else is happening, something deliberate, something organized by principles we haven't yet grasped. Now ask yourself this profound question. If 3I Atlas genuinely carries multiple accompanying bodies, traveling in formation, if these companions aren't merely fragments but coordinated travelers, what does that reality imply about the universe surrounding us? We've operated under the assumption that humanity represents the explorer, that we're the ones casting our instruments into cosmic darkness, searching for others. But what if the truth runs deeper? What if we are actually the observed? What if our act of finally looking upward with sophisticated enough technology has allowed us to notice something that's been quietly watching all along? As a theoretical physicist, I don't see this possibility as a crisis of belief requiring denial or fear. I see it as an invitation to fundamentally expand the framework of science itself. Every anomaly carries a message disguised within its strangeness. Every irregularity represents a question we simply haven't yet learned to formulate properly. The implications cascade outward like ripples across still water, transforming everything they touch. If we're genuinely observing a coordinated formation of objects moving through our solar system with apparent purpose, then we must reconsider everything we thought we understood about the nature of interstellar travel, about the distribution of intelligence throughout the cosmos, about our own place in the grand scheme of celestial mechanics. Eastern wisdom has been tracking these developments with remarkable insight, recognizing that ancient philosophical traditions may have already contemplated such possibilities. The channel's community of observers has contributed invaluable perspectives to this unfolding narrative, bridging the gap between modern scientific inquiry and timeless cosmic understanding. The collective intelligence of amateur astronomers, professional researchers, philosophers, and curious minds worldwide has created a network of observation that no single institution could replicate. This democratization of astronomical discovery represents one of the most significant shifts in how we gather and interpret cosmic data. It represents a fundamental power redistribution, moving knowledge from institutional gatekeepers into the hands of engaged global communities. The implications extend far beyond mere observation. If 3I Atlas represents a deliberate visitation, then we must confront the possibility that our species has been under observation for far longer than we realize. Ancient texts speak of visitors from the stars. Mythologies across cultures describe beings descending from the heavens. Were these merely imaginative constructs, or were they attempts by our ancestors to describe genuine encounters with something beyond their comprehension? Eastern wisdom explores these connections, suggesting that the boundary between ancient wisdom and modern science may be far more permeable than we've assumed. Perhaps our ancestors possessed knowledge that we've lost. Perhaps they understood cosmic truths that we're only now beginning to rediscover. Perhaps 3i Atlas represents a continuation of a conversation that began millennia ago. Very soon now, 3i Atlas will disappear behind our sun's overwhelming glare, temporarily hidden from observation. The object will pass through a period of invisibility, a cosmic eclipse that will test our patience and our commitment to understanding. But when it re-emerges in December, the world will be waiting with telescopes realigned and data systems prepared. Information will pour in from observatories spanning every continent. Satellite networks will track its trajectory. Radio telescopes will analyze its emissions. Spectroscopic instruments will dissect its composition. And perhaps, if we're extraordinarily fortunate, that institutional silence we've discussed will finally break. The pressure of global attention, the weight of independent verification, the sheer volume of data pouring in from multiple sources may force transparency where bureaucratic caution previously prevailed. The truth has a way of emerging, regardless of how thoroughly we attempt to suppress it. Until that moment arrives, we must do what science has always demanded of us throughout history. We must remain patient while data accumulates. We must remain appropriately skeptical of extraordinary claims. And crucially, we must remain intellectually open to possibilities that challenge our comfortable assumptions. The universe operates under absolutely no obligation to conform to our expectations or fit neatly within our existing categories. It simply is what it is. And sometimes, just sometimes, it leaves a mysterious green trail streaking through the darkness to remind us that the greatest discoveries never arrive packaged with convenient answers. They arrive bearing better, more profound questions that push the boundaries of human understanding. Because ultimately, whether 3i Atlas proves to be a fragment of alien geology torn from some distant planetary system, or whether it represents something far more intentional, something deliberately sent across the void between stars, it carries with it the same precious gift, the opportunity to see ourselves once again as beginners standing at the threshold of cosmic mysteries. And perhaps, just perhaps, the chance to recognize ourselves as participants in a conversation far larger than we ever imagined. A conversation written not in human words, but in the elegant motion of celestial bodies dancing through the infinite arena of space and time. The green flash, the synchronized companions, the impossible structural integrity, the early water vapor emissions, the institutional silence, the historical patterns of withholding information, all of these elements weave together into a tapestry that demands our attention. We stand at a crossroads in human history where the evidence, however circumstantial, however incomplete, points toward possibilities that our ancestors could only dream about. The question before us now isn't whether 3i Atlas is extraordinary. The observations have already confirmed that beyond reasonable doubt. The question is whether we possess the intellectual courage to follow the evidence wherever it leads, regardless of how uncomfortable that destination might be. Science thrives on uncertainty. It flourishes in the space between what we know and what we don't yet understand. That space is where discovery lives, where paradigm shifts originate, where humanity's understanding of reality fundamentally transforms. 3i Atlas may represent nothing more than an unusual comet with peculiar properties we've simply never encountered before. But it may also represent something far more significant. It may represent a message, a probe, a deliberate visitation, or simply evidence that the universe is far stranger and more populated than our current models suggest. Whatever the ultimate truth proves to be, we cannot afford to let fear silence our curiosity. We cannot permit institutional caution to override scientific integrity. We cannot accept comfortable lies when uncomfortable truths demand investigation. The cosmos has presented us with a mystery wrapped inside an enigma, delivered by an object that refuses to behave according to our expectations. And in that refusal lies the greatest gift the universe can offer to a species finally mature enough to look upward and truly see. The observations will continue, the data will accumulate. The truth, whatever it may be, will eventually emerge from the darkness. And when it does, humanity will face a moment of profound reckoning, a moment where we must finally answer the question that has haunted our species since we first gazed upward at the stars. Are we truly alone? Or have we simply been waiting for the right moment, the right signal, the right mysterious green flash to remind us that we've never been alone at all? The universe is speaking. The question is whether we're finally ready to listen. Eastern wisdom reminds us that this moment represents more than a scientific inquiry. It represents a spiritual awakening, a recognition that humanity is part of something infinitely larger than ourselves. The answer to our deepest questions may be arriving not in textbooks or laboratory reports, but in the silent testimony of celestial visitors moving through our skies. We must open our eyes. We must open our minds. We must open our hearts to possibilities that transcend the boundaries of conventional understanding. The cosmos awaits our response.